Welcome to the City Movement Podcast. Here at the City Movement, we are passionate about planting churches and YMCAs. So today you'll hear us talk about the YMCA, the local church, and the benefits of the church YMCA partnership. We're your hosts, Jeff Snyder and Mike Newman. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Hey, welcome into the City Movement Podcast. We're back here with episode 3, where we're diving deep on planting churches in the YMCA. It's something so close to our heart. This is Jeff Snyder. I'm here with Mike Newman and David Newman. How you guys doing?
We're doing great.
Yeah,
awesome. It's January.
Freezing cold.
Very cold.
Beginning of the year.
Negative
Hey, I
10.
got a question to start us off, okay?
Yeah.
Unplanned, unscripted. Tell each other, tell us, our listeners, what's your strategy for Bible reading this year? What's your plan for growing spiritually? I mean, we got like content prepared for this podcast.
That's a great question.
We're thinking through, the soils and planting churches. But first, come on, let's just get to know each other a little bit more. What's your plan?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it short.
Okay.
But I would say there's a couple things going on. So I'm doing a chronological Bible reading plan.
Yeah.
It's called the Bible Recap with Tara Lee Cobble.
Yeah.
Tara Lee Cobble
last year.
seems fine. For me, it's more about I love the way that it just organizes the approach to reading the Bible chronologically.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's really good. I just finished Job. It's been really good for me.
Awesome.
And our church is doing a 21-day prayer and fasting kind of initiative to start the new year.
Yeah.
So 3 times a week I'm fasting from dinner the night before until dinner the next day.
Yeah.
Which has been really good for me.
That's good.
So,
That's good. How about you there, brother?
Yeah, man, I felt like I looked for different plans, strategies, blah, 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 and I just felt like I got the starting point, which is Isaiah. So I've been delving into Isaiah and a little bit of 1 Corinthians, but a whole bunch of Isaiah. So I'll know where that goes next. Mm-hmm. And I'm also doing the 21-day prayer and fast. It's been hard and good, but hard.
Yeah.
It's been hard for me. But God's meeting me in it.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Good.
what about you, Mike?
Yeah, I'm doing a Book of the Month club. So back in college, started it, and it's one book every month, jumping from Old Testament, New Testament, different genres. So I'm starting the year in Mark, loving it. Great to just be reading Jesus again.
Yeah.
So it keeps it fresh for me, in terms of just studying one thing in depth, and then moving on. So at that rate, book a month, you would read the Bible through in 5 years.
Yeah.
So sometimes I've done, read the Bible through in a year, and I'm ambitious to just finish, or ambitious just to finish my reading. And so this has been a good rhythm for me.
That's awesome.
The Book of Month Club would be an interesting thing if you would go from Philemon to Psalms.
Yeah, a little different strategy.
Yeah. You have to judgmentally pick which book you are reading each month.
That's right. And in February, the shorter months, go with the Philemon.
29 days this year, though. Get ready. It's a leap year.
Buckle up. Yeah, man. Yeah. So what are we talking about today, Jeff?
Okay, so last time we talked about...
Hold on. Props to the new sign.
Oh, I didn't know if we were going to say something about the new
Jim
sign.
Bird, the carpenter from Lebanon, Ohio.
Boom.
He's officially our first sponsor of the podcast, don't you think?
Yeah, we should get him a little commercial on here.
Yes,
we can
we
read
should
for
get
him.
A wristband, or a T-shirt,
no doubt.
All right, where are we going?
So this season we're going in on how we plant churches and why. Last time we did an overview of kind of 5 steps and what that looks like. Newman went deep on his new life as a farmer.
Yes.
I even had someone tell me after listening to the podcast, they basically think David is a farmer
yes,
now.
I kind of
he lives on a farm and
let
he's
him
a farmer.
check that.
And I was like, man, you got the wrong guy.
That is true. True.
But we said last time we looked at the first step in planting a church in Hawaii, and we said you assess the soil, right? So I don't know, David, give us 15 seconds on what we talked about.
Yeah, just, assessing the soil. Since I don't only think, but I am a farmer. One of the first things we had to do was get our little soil test, what will grow here? And will the plants that we want to plant actually grow here? And if not, what needs to be added or taken away so that it will grow? And likewise, in church world, we're just saying that that there's all different kind of contexts for where you'd plant a church in a Y. Some Ys are really receptive and open and ready, and some are just like, the ground is a little bit harder.
Yeah.
And so you got to assess the soil.
Yeah.
And so then after we assess the soil, even playing back on your farming analogy, since I learned from you,
yes,
farmer, after you assess the soil, that then probably helps you determine what kinds of things you need to do to the soil so that it's ready for planting, which is going to be our next episode. But so this one, we're talking about preparing the ground. So we're going to say once you assess the soil, you start to understand maybe what kinds of things need done to the soil in order for it to be ready for seeds.
Yeah, exactly. You don't, any farmer knows you don't just be like, hey, all right, like soil is good, throw in seeds, start planting. You actually say, all right, we need to do some plowing. We need to do some weeding. We need to move rocks. In our farmland, we had tons of rocks that you had to take out.
Yeah.
And so I just think likewise, I've seen a tendency, I don't know if you guys have seen the tendency, but often, particularly in YMCA church planting world, that people are like, space is open, we can rent it, let's put signs up and start a service right away. Instead of going through what we've seen to be really fruitful, which is some of the slow and hard work of what you would do to prepare the soil for a future harvest, to do some things that would really set you up for future ministry.
Yeah.
So,
question maybe just before we start walking down that path, is this content, or is this like specific theme geared just to the church planting pastor, or is there a broader audience that you guys would say this is going to be applicable to? What would you guys say?
I mean, I would say, I think we even mentioned this at the end of our Assessing the Soil podcast. I think it's open to anyone that's involved in the YMCA. Like, I would even say for a YMCA employee, for you to prepare the ground of your own Y for either a church plant or just there's a certain preparation of the ground in evangelism and mission, in terms of what is the soil like and what steps can I take to prepare it for when seeds of the gospel are planted for them to flourish. And so I would say, man, if you're an employee at YMCA, even if you're just a member at the Y, I do think it makes sense to approach anytime you're going somewhere with intention of gospel mission, to assess what's already been done there and then prepare the ground for what you're going to be doing next.
Yeah.
So Y employees?
Yeah.
Members?
Yeah.
Members?
Volunteers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, as we get into this content, we'll see, but I think anytime you want to talk to somebody about the hope of Jesus and you want to have these evangelistic conversations, it doesn't work just to meet them and blast them with the gospel. I mean, you're building trust. You're actually genuinely showing care, and you are building the type of relationship where they're able to hear the message that's so important that you have to say.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Yeah.
I'm on board.
So preparing the ground.
Yeah. So why don't we go there? So we're going to focus the next 15 or 20 minutes on preparing the ground. So why don't you tee us up, David, for when we say prepare the ground, from a soil of the YMCA standpoint, what are we talking about? What does it look like?
Yeah, I think that there are certain things that we've seen that you can do to just build trust and to set yourself up for a ministry that will go well. And so for example, something that we love to tell people is, hey, you're interested in planting at a Y? Okay, after you've assessed the soil and begun praying and walking around, join the Y, be there, and start to become like this known and familiar face and presence, because there's something about just being present. Wouldn't you guys say?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think of a couple of relationships that I've been just praying through in my efforts to be present.
Yeah.
Hannah and I are taking a few classes together at the Y to meet people and be around them consistently. Just this past week, I've tried to squat more, fellas, this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
And so there's a few consistent relationships around the squat rack. So I got to invite a guy to church after squatting next to him for the last couple months.
That's great.
And we've been talking about him and his marriage and things like that. And so,
are there any other mid-40s guys that are squatting too, or are you just with the?
All sorts of people.
Oh yeah,
all
okay.
ranges.
Yeah,
it's one of the finest compound lifts you can do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, we are really getting technical now.
Boost the testosterone.
Yeah, you need some testosterone boost.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry that we haven't.
I'm going to let that go. I'm going to let that go. Yeah.
So you're saying ministry of presence. Like if we're talking about preparing the ground, being present.
Yeah, any YMCA, there's people that are just like rarely there. They're in and they're out. But then everybody knows the people that are kind of consistent and present and then not just being present, but doing a few things that earn trust. Like, for example, I would say every YMCA has 4, 5, 6 events that happen every year.
Yep.
And at these events, there are people that will sign up and go. And you just got to be present. You got to be one of those that, you just got to be one of those that are there and present.
Yeah, so I think even just two words that I'm picking up on that are being repeated over and over again, which I think are probably the key words for what we're going to talk about for the rest of this podcast, is presence and trust. It's like, how do we build trust when we're preparing? That's preparing the ground, the soil. And obviously one of the ways you build trust is just by being present and being there. Yeah. There is something, and I think I learned this over a lot of the shutdowns that happened back in 2020 and 2021. There's a certain connection that you lose and a certain benefit of the doubt that you lose when you're not present with each other.
Yeah.
When you're not present with other people, all of a sudden it's like you stop extending them the grace that they've been given when you see them all the time, and you start assuming the worst. And I think that's one reason why even just being present when you're assessing the soil and preparing the ground, what it does is you start building the relationships that end in trust just by being present at the beginning.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, that's great. So you and your church plant team get memberships at the Y, and then just start being there. And I would say this is so easy. It's almost, it seems ridiculous to verbalize it, but get to know the names of the employees and the CEO and just different people that are employed at the Y. It's amazing what happens when you just introduce yourself and get to know their names and call them by name and just begin that process. I've been amazed actually watching you, Mike, just how you walk the halls of the Y and you're like, hey, how's your sister doing? We've been praying for that person. Or you just you've had these little tiny casual conversations which have built trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would also say sign up for classes. Sign up your kids for T-ball. Sign up for whatever class. Like just start to this historian Rodney Stark said that one of the greatest attributes of the early Christians is that they seeped into all the cracks of society and brought the message of Jesus with them. And so, what does it look like to seep into the cracks of the YMCA, like to go into the places with your church plant team?
Yeah, not just with your church plant team, right? Because I think there's a lot of people in YMCA churches right now that might say something like, how do I get involved in the YMCA?
Yeah.
What does it look like for me to be in this YMCA church and actually lean into the mission that they're proclaiming? And I think what you're saying is seep into the cracks, get involved anywhere where it feels like God has made you to come alive in that area, or even just other ways that you might be praying through, get involved there. And even, I know this is true of a lot of Ys, not just ours. If there's even a community space, I see people working and meeting in the community space of our Y all the time. You don't even have to be a member to go there, to see some of the employees, to get involved and start to be a familiar face.
Yeah, I just think of my CEO this last week, Chris Johnson. He said one of the greatest examples this last year of somebody just really getting it and doing it right. One of our pastors, his name is Ryan Massey, and he speaks Spanish fluently. And the staff at the Y don't speak Spanish, but we have all kinds of employees that Spanish is their first language. And so Ryan will just set up shop there, and he looks for ways to just lovingly speak Spanish to the employees that speak Spanish. He sometimes is the interpreter for when someone comes in and is speaking Spanish and the desk people don't know how to communicate. And so it's just been such a blessing. Like he's gained so much trust.
Yeah, that's really cool. Maybe one comment, maybe this is just a heart of mercy or whatever, but I can think of a number of people that so far, if they're listening to this message, would respond with fear or discouragement to say, okay, those examples that you've used, I'm not that. I don't know Spanish. I can't come in a social setting and influence.
Yeah.
And so I think of like that verse that talks about boasting in our weaknesses.
Yeah.
And maybe just to encourage, if someone's listening and has that type of feeling that maybe your 2024 plan would be, I just got to get in shape. And so maybe your pathway could be signing up with a physical trainer and saying, I need help. But as you're being helped, you could say, hey, you're helping me physically. Anyway, I could be praying for you this week.
Yeah.
Right? That's maybe a small example of using your weakness to magnify Christ and to start seeping into those cracks, being outward focused and using what God has given you, even using your suffering.
Yeah.
So
No, I agree with that. One of the things I was going to say was I've been trying to take more classes at the Y this year, in a similar way, maybe not a trainer, but I do think there is something to, even as a pastor, stepping in and almost submitting myself to whatever the cycle spin trainer is telling me to do
so
and
humbling.
torturing me.
That is so humbling.
To then, in some way, it grows my relationship with that person.
Yes.
Yeah.
To then be able to say, like, you tortured me for the last 45 minutes.
Right.
So in some way, I think they feel a little bit more connection with me.
It's good.
Yes.
And so I just think there's something to finding different ways you can get involved.
Yeah.
As pastors, we can all say this, but I think anyone in churches could say, go meet the people at the Y where they're at and doing
So
what
good.
they're doing, not trying to just call them into a spiritual
And
conversation
Jeff,
all the time.
take your right ankle and throw it around your left shoulder like a scarf.
Yes.
And breathe.
Yes.
I'm not taking yoga, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So be present, be around, and then I would say something else that we've seen is begin to speak the love languages of the Y. So let me just throw this topic out there. If anybody's been around Christian world, Christian marriage world, you've probably heard of the 5 love languages. One of you guys want to rattle them off?
Gifts,
Gifts. Okay.
physical touch,
Yeah.
acts of service,
Good job.
words of affirmation,
Yeah.
quality time.
Boom. Jeff Snyder.
Well done.
Thank you.
All right.
Well done.
If only I was as good at executing all of the love
Yes.
languages as I
Yes.
am
All I
at
could think of was
naming them.
NFL stuff.
Yes.
Is that in there?
No.
Okay.
Not so much.
Quality time with the Packers.
I got to work on that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So, likewise, we would say we've seen some love languages of the YMCA, or things that speak the greatest heart needs, the greatest gratitude producing in the YMCA. So, what would you guys say? Let's just rattle off some of the things that would speak value and love to the Y.
Can I give an example
Yeah.
from recent? One of the things that we found that speaks the love language to our Y, even specifically the staff of our Y, is by using the gifts that we have, or even the training that we have, or the things we're good at, to serve them and their needs.
Yeah.
So recently, our Y has a multi-purpose room event center where we have our services, and they have these huge projectors that were installed 6 years ago that they're starting to die. And to get them replaced or upgraded is $14,000 each.
Right.
And so the Y approached us and we were in conversation. We're like, why don't we help you? And we'll use some of the technical skills that we have and the things we've learned over the years to build you a different solution.
Yeah.
And so what we did is we built them 2 really big TV carts with nice sound bars and great multimedia connections. They paid for it, right? We're not giving them money, but we're using the things that we've learned over the years to bless their rentals department so that it's going to be ready and good and set up. And when they used it for the first time, the director of rentals was just like, it was awesome. We're so grateful.
Yeah.
Thank you for helping us. And it spoke our love language
Yeah.
because we served without asking anything in return
Yeah.
what her needs were.
Yeah.
So I would say serving.
Yeah.
Serving.
Serving the
Servanthood.
why is the
Yes.
love language they receive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll pitch out another one, maybe to be repetitive, presence, but specifically showing up to their stuff. So every church wants to be involved in the community, make a difference in the community. A church in the Y has a specific opportunity to approach the Y and say, what's on your calendar, and how can our church love, serve, and care those particular events to bring Christ to them? And so the Y has a gala, the Y has kids triathlon, the Y has, and so it would be showing up and supporting them.
Yeah.
That really earns trust.
Yeah.
I mean, showing up is costly financially, which is another maybe love languages. Every Y is looking to raise funds, and so if you can throw in some money to say, hey, we back you, or we want to encourage and support this community, that's just such a positive, trust building way to to prepare soil.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
presence,
servanthood, money. I would say something we've learned over the years is there is no event that they put on that they ask for sponsors that we're not on their banner or their T-shirt or whatever it is. We sponsor. If it's golf outing, buy a table. We buy 3, and we just want them to see that we're willing to again speak their love language of money. And so I'd also add one other one. It is a volunteer organization. It thrives, lives, dies on volunteers. I have never been around a YMCA that doesn't say we need volunteers to coach our teams, to be a part of committees, to mentor kids. There's all these volunteer opportunities. One of the greatest things we can do, and it will speak such a loud language, is when you raise your hand and you say, I'll help, I'll volunteer.
Yeah.
So, can I make one other comment?
Go for it.
Each of these things, this is where I think it would be so important. Again, church planting logic, church planting tendency is sometimes we've got a space that we can rent. Let's get in there and start our services. And when we're kind of counseling people to plant in a Y, everything we talked about can be done before you are kind of like a public church launched, okay? Like you can get in there and just say, we would like to start doing services in 6 months, and this is what we want to do for the next 6 months. What events do you have? We'll be there. How can we serve you? How can we be present? How can we, what can we give to? And as you do that, it's amazing how the trust just builds in the background. The ground is prepared.
Yeah.
So if assessing the soil is about just showing up and being present, I think we would say that preparing the ground is about building trust and building the relational capital so that as you're there long term, not just having services, but just present long term as a believer, you're building the relational capital with the people so that they know that for you, the Y isn't just a place to have a service.
Yeah.
The Y is a people that you are investing in deeply.
Yeah.
And I think, because when I think about preparing the ground, I think it's not just a church planting thing.
Yeah.
I think even for our church, which has been in the Y for over 20 years, we have to constantly prepare the ground in terms of, I'm not going to stop coaching teams at the Y or taking classes at the Y just because we reach a certain, we've been here a while, so we're good now. But we have to constantly be preparing the ground. Just like I'm assuming in farming, I would assume you prepare the ground every year or at least every couple years. I know sometimes you move from soil to soil because you don't want to take all the nutrients out. It's something that you're constantly coming back to, and so I would say this isn't just for church planters.
Sure.
It's not just when you're thinking about planting a church.
Yeah.
I think everyone that is in a church in a Y or an employee in a Y can constantly thinking about how can we prepare our soil better.
That's right. And just so you know, from the YMCA side, so from the CEO side, from the staff side, we talk to YMCA CEOs and leaders all the time that are wondering, should I have a church planted here? And honestly, the number one thing that kind of pops up is, are they going to be weird? Are they going to offend our members? Can I trust them?
Mm-hmm.
Like all these questions. So usually they start out real kind of boundaried up and clamped down, like until a relationship is established where they trust you, which happens as you listen and volunteer. And
or you have to figure out if there's certain people on your team that you should just not let go to the Y very often. We try and keep David's Y hours at 30 minutes a week because we just know something is going to happen the more he is there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome to my life growing up,
Yes.
Yeah. Any last words as we wrap up that you guys any last exhortations or questions you would want people to think about in terms of what it looks like to prepare the ground?
I mean, I just have one, and it's probably the main point in preparing the ground, which is all throughout the history of the YMCA, it is prayer that has been the means that God has used to soften the soil so that kingdom ministry happens. If you're not familiar with the original story, George Williams and went around his YMCA, which was hard ground. Okay, it wasn't a YMCA; it was a factory, and he prayed name by name, and as he prayed name by name, God just softened the ground. It's God that softens the ground. It's God that prepares the soil.
That's right.
It's not us. It's not our strategies.
Yeah.
And so spend time doing the work of putting the list of the YMCA employees on your list. Do it George Williams style. Walk around and pray that God would move in your Y, that God would make this a place fruitful for the gospel.
Yeah.
Pray. Just pray.
It's good. That's a great word. A quote came to mind by Josh Heaston, our buddy from Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And it just frames everything for me. And he just always says, remember, the Y is people. And so if you're like, I'm not into the Y, or, I'm not passionate about this, it's like God loves people.
Yeah.
And so let's have on our heart what's on his, to be, to serve him by loving people. Mm-hmm. And so this is all framed in the context of how can we love and serve and care people so that they can either know or grow in Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So the ultimate end is to glorify him and then to prepare the soil for harvest, which is coming in terms of the next episode. So,
yeah, and I think I would just say that if the word for our episode is maybe trust or building trust, a question to consider would be, what am I doing this next month or this next quarter of the year in terms of building trust with people at the Y? I think we can all, no matter where you are, maybe you've never set foot in the Y. What does it look like to take the next step of starting one relationship? Or even for all of us, I think we could just say, how can I extend that umbrella of people that I'm building trust with? Whether it's like you have a kid that's playing on a sports team at the Y, what would it look like to show up with intentionality to build trust with their coach? Or with the sports director who is stressed because he's putting on the whole league? Or if you're maybe you're just showing up for a workout, what does it look like to not just walk in and walk out because you want to take care of your New Year's resolution, but to show up with the intentionality that I want to build trust with the person who's cleaning the machines in the CSC or doing whatever? I think that would be a good consideration for what it looks like to actually prepare the ground in your YMCA.
That's good.
That's good.
Any other closing thoughts?
That's good. Let it be.
All right. It was great to be with you guys.
Yeah, you too.
It's cold outside, but it's warm in here now.
Come on, man.
I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean, but all right. Thanks for being with us. For Mike Newman and David Newman, this is Jeff Snyder. That was the City Movement Podcast.